Just 50 years ago, we finally ventured to the moon. For the very first time, we looked back at our own planet. Since then, the human population has more than doubled. This series will celebrate the natural wonders that remain and reveal what we must preserve to ensure people and nature thrive. Dolphins. Panicking. They're being hunted by false killer whales. Dolphins are faster in short bursts. Their hunters have stamina. Just as the killer whales close in, the dolphins make a sudden turn to evade their predators. These extraordinary events are taking place far from land where few of us ever venture. This is the ocean beyond the boundary of any country. Largely ungoverned, wild, and lawless, nothing symbolizes our relationship with the high seas better than the blue whale. Weighing 200 tons and 30 meters long, these are the largest animals ever to have existed. Yet, much of their lives is still a mystery to us. Blue whales live far out to sea, roaming every ocean from the tropics to the poles. We have only recently discovered a few special places where they come close to shore. The Gulf of California, on Mexico's Pacific coast. This is a sanctuary for blue whales. Meet the world's biggest newborn, a baby blue, just a month old. She's already 8 meters long and weighs 6 tons. Her mother shelters her with a protective fin. They caress one another, cherishing their close bond. These are the most intimate images ever captured of a blue whale mother. And her calf. This female will give birth only once every 2 or 3 years, so each baby blue is extremely precious. The calf will grow 3 tons a month. Once, there were more than 300,000 blue whales. But last century, they were hunted relentlessly and only a few thousand survived. Blue whales are now protected and their numbers are slowly increasing. Soon, this calf will leave these sheltered waters to roam the high seas. We once thought that the high seas were simply too vast for us to damage. But we now know that her ocean home is under threat as never before. Out here in the big blue, there remain a few pristine places to remind us how rich the oceans can still be. Spinner dolphins. In the Pacific off the coast of Costa Rica, Central America, they're starting to gather in great numbers. Spinners live in pods, groups of individuals linked by complex social relationships. The dolphins constantly touch and talk with one another using a language of clicks and whistles. They're shadowed by yellowfin tuna. The tuna rely on the dolphins to find food. Everyone is searching for the same prey. Lanternfish, the most numerous fish on the planet. Other than your finger, lanternfish spend most of their time hiding in the deep. So, despite their astounding abundance, we don't fish for them. They are one of the few fish that still thrives. As they close in on their prey, the dolphin pod gets bigger and bigger. This pod could be 10,000 strong. At the surface, 20 swim below. Using echolocation, a type of sonar, the dolphins detect lanternfish in the depths and drive them to the surface. They patrol the underside of the shoal to stop their prey escaping back to the deep. Once the dolphins have had their fill, there's still plenty more for other predators. Nebula rays swoop in. To maximize their catch, the rays attack in formation. A wall of mouths scooping up their prey. Because we don't fish for them, lanternfish and their predators thrive. All these hunters have barely made a dent in the Great Shoal. Most life in the open ocean is concentrated in a thin surface layer where the power of the sun has its greatest effect. These sunlit shallows are fertilized in a surprising way. As the dolphins produce waste, they play a vital role recycling nutrients from the deep up to the surface. This marine manure helps to fuel the basis of all life in the open ocean. Phytoplankton, microscopic drifting plants. They combine nutrients in seawater with energy from the sun to create the very foundation of every food chain out here. So, all animals, from the smallest fish to the largest whale, ultimately depend on these tiny plants for food. And, in turn, the phytoplankton benefits from the nutrients produced by these animals. Crucially, phytoplankton also produce half the oxygen in the air we breathe. So, no matter where you live, you can thank these exquisite little plants for every other breath you take. In ideal conditions, they can bloom to such an extent that great swathes of the ocean turn green. Surprisingly, phytoplankton also play a vital role in cloud formation. Moisture evaporating from the ocean condenses around tiny particles created by the plankton. These droplets combine to grow into colossal clouds. They can rise 20 kilometers into the atmosphere. These oceanic clouds reflect the sun's energy back into space, helping to protect the Earth from rising temperatures. Not only do the oceans produce half the oxygen we breathe, they also drive the weather and climate, transporting life-giving fresh water around the world. The high seas are the life support system of our planet. They have such power simply because they're so vast. The oceans cover two-thirds of the globe, and that's just the surface. They're also immensely deep. We can only journey to this unexplored space in special submarines that can withstand the crushing pressure of the ocean. The average depth of the oceans is nearly 4 kilometers, and the deepest point, more than 10, makes up 95% of all the space available for life. This alien world is home to weird and mysterious creatures. Few are stranger than this one. For years, we only knew they existed from the occasional one washed ashore. They have hardly ever been seen alive. An oarfish, 10 meters long, hanging vertically and using rhythmic waves along their dorsal fin, oarfish commute easily between the surface and the depths. Below 200 meters, there's not enough light for plants to grow, so deep-sea animals depend on food sinking down from the surface. Marine snow. A crowned jellyfish drifts with tentacles outstretched to ensnare prey. They live in every ocean to depths of 7 kilometers. The deep is so vast that these could be the most abundant of all jellyfish. We used to think the deep supported little life, but scientists now believe there are 10 times more animals living here than previously thought. So, there must be many yet to be discovered. This deep water crustacean, Cystosoma, is as clear as glass. It hides in plain sight. In this twilight zone, invisibility can be the difference between finding a meal and being one. Its huge eyes strain to see in the gloom. No light can see it. Light penetrates below 1,000 meters. In this darkness, animals create their own light. Bioluminescence. A glowing lure entices victims into this dragonfish's terrifying teeth. On most expeditions down here, we are surprised by something new. A deep-sea anglerfish. Her extraordinary array of sensors will detect even the faintest movement by prey tempted to her lure. Here, in the deep midwater, predators play a patient game. Eventually, we reach the bottom. Nearly 1,000 meters down, the deep-sea plains cover more than half the Earth's surface. And yet, we know more about the surface of the moon. Chimera, an ancient relative of the shark, up to 2 meters long. Few species of this size can make a living on the barren seafloor. Moving slowly to conserve energy, they use special electrical sensors around their mouths to search for scarce prey buried in the sediment. Rocky outcrops rising from the seafloor can be oases in this desert. This ragged-toothed shark has come here for good reason. 500 meters down off the coast of Florida, a rare hotspot of life. Lophelia, deep-sea coral reefs. We used to think that corals were only found in the warm, sunny shallows. But, astonishingly, deep-sea reefs cover a greater area of the seafloor than their shallow water relatives. These underwater forests provide shelter and food for a rich community of marine life. They're also vital nurseries for many deep-sea creatures. The corals are made up of many anemone-like individuals, polyps, that live in colonies connected by a hard skeleton. The polyps have stinging cells in their tentacles to snare passing prey, their only source of food. But they don't always get to keep their catch. A bristleworm has set up home within the coral. It checks the polyps for a freshly caught morsel and steals it from the coral. But this theft is actually a protection bracket. Urchins attack and eat the corals. Time for payback. The urchin may have protected spines, but the worm has a shocking weapon and goes on the attack. The urchin has been seen off, and the worm has saved its home. Like most deep-sea animals, these corals grow extremely slowly. Some reefs may be 40,000 years old. Despite being so far beneath the surface, these corals are still within our reach. Deep-sea fishing nets, dragged across the seafloor, reduce the fragile reefs to rubble. Half of all deep-sea corals have already been destroyed. It will take centuries for these communities to recover. Beyond the boundary of any one country, the high seas are wild and dangerous. Wild and barely protected. Wildest of all, the Southern Ocean, home of the albatross. Albatross live solitary lives far out to sea.